Hello, how are you? And welcome to the nerve centre that is Motor Mania. As ever, we've got a cracking show for you, and here's what's coming up this week. Ian Royle, he's been looking at some gorgeous cars from America when he visits a US car importer. Jenny Hazlehurst takes a drive down memory lane at a classic car show. Steve Vokins, well, he'll be giving us his thoughts on the new Citroen Picasso. As for me, as you can see up there, I've been looking at a new supercar, stunning, and it's from America. And with a bit of a twist for Motor Mania, we're proving that you don't have to have four wheels to have excitement when we're looking at jet skiing. Enjoy the programme.
Many classic movies over the years have catapulted certain cars to stardom and cult status. Do you remember Steve McQueen in Bullitt from the late 1960s? Well, he was driving a certain car around the streets of San Francisco very fast. It was one of these, a 1968 Mustang. How about Burt Reynolds in the Smokey and the Bandit movies? What was he driving? Well, apart from the awful wig, it was a Trans Am. How about David Hasselhoff in Knight Rider, a Pontiac Firebird, and so the list goes on. And if you want to emulate your heroes and drive a bit of a flashy car around that will turn heads, well, you can do for very little cash. Forget about the cars from the 90s, head back earlier to the 70s and even to the 60s for some seriously cool American classics. You know, I've never driven a Trans Am before, and now is my big chance. This is a 1986 model Trans Am, the sort of car that you would have seen in the Knight Rider films. Earlier Trans Ams were heavily featured in the Smokey and the Bandit films with Burt Reynolds, as we've already mentioned. 5-litre V8 under the bonnet with a wonderful growl to it. It sounds absolutely amazing. About 250 brake horsepower on tap. And this car would cost you around about £5,000. Now, when you think of American cars, you think about great big barges. But this isn't at all like that. Of course, you get power steering, an automatic box, fully loaded air conditioning, cruise control, the whole works. It's easy to park, it'll fit in your garage, and for 5K, you can't go wrong. Boy, this is what it's all about. A 1968 Mustang, a Bullitt replica. Now, I think if you're going to drive an American car, you want to be seen to be a bit cool. And this has to be the ultimate cool car. It's had a complete ground-up restoration work. It's a 68, it's worth about £8,000. Now, the original owner would have spent some £8,000 or £9,000 doing that restoration work, and it's generally the case when you're restoring a car, you rarely get back the money that you've spent on it, which of course is a bit of a problem. But now it's holding its value. £8,000 or so would buy you this particular car, and it's a whole lot different to the Trans Am that we've just been driving. This is a lot more of a raw beast. There's no power steering, no assisted brakes. It's a 5-litre V8 engine under the bonnet with about 225, 230 brake horsepower. And it has the most wonderful sound to it. If only I was on the streets of San Francisco. Now, we couldn't possibly do a feature on American classic cars without having driven a convertible. This is a 1966 Mustang, and it's a completely different car to drive than the previous Mustang that we've just been in. This has got a 4.7-litre V8 engine. Again, sounds wonderful. It's got about 225 brake horsepower on tap, do about 18 miles to the gallon around town, so not too bad. And what can I say? It's very different to drive. It's got power everything, this one. Power steering, which is incredibly light. It's got a power hood. I love the details around the dashboard, the heater controls and the light switches and the wiper switches and everything. It's just so classic Americana for you. I can't tell you how much fun I've had today and what a real hoot it's been driving these classic American vehicles. We've had 3 wonderful cars, 2 Mustangs and a Trans Am. Between them, 3 very different cars as well. And if I had to choose between them all, I don't honestly know which one I'd go for. If I had some spare cash and somewhere to house something like this at home, I could be very tempted into buying something like this.
Now, jet skiing isn't always about racing. There's room for loads of fun on them, and these guys take it to the limit. It's called freestyle. Now, we've all seen Kevin Costner's Waterworld, and I've always wondered whether those watery stunts were real or a bit of a fishy tale of computer effects. If you're completely unaware of what goes on at jet ski competitions, then you're not alone. Jet ski freestylers compete in the stand-up category. Each competitor has 2 minutes to execute a choreographed sequence of mad manoeuvres, including tail stands, aerial somersaults, Superman moves and pirouettes. Points are awarded by judges for technical complexity and style. Let's see if these freestylers can impress the judges on the water. Now, don't be fooled into thinking names like Monkey Jump, Saturday Night Squirt, and Kamikaze Submarine are easy tasks. These are physically torturous moves that require an athletic prowess and technique that takes years of practice to perfect. Jet skis may look stable and user-friendly, but staying aboard the device is a challenge. I've had a wonderful day, and these guys are really talented professionals. And who knows, with a little practice, we might be seeing you there next time.
In today's global village, it's encouraging to remember that even cars built for a world market still display the characteristics of their country of origin. Take, for instance, the French. The French have always liked to go their own way and do their own thing. For instance, while we have rectangular bread that cuts into nice square slices for bacon sandwiches, their bread looks like this. Our cheese is hard and crumbly like Wensleydale and cheddar, whereas theirs is soft and creamy. Our favourite dish is roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, while theirs is this. Now, the French also adopt a similarly unique approach to designing cars. The 2CV, for instance, is the product of Gallic individuality. It's the French version of Ford's Model T. It was designed in the 1930s to be rugged enough to carry French peasant farmers and their families to market over the roughest of French countryside. It's as much a part of France's design heritage now as the Eiffel Tower. It's a real icon of Frenchness. This, the Picasso from Citroen, is the latest French deviation from the car design norm and would doubtless attract heaps of praise from the likes of Antoine de Caunes for its daring French avant-garde style. It is a stylish family car, and the French are particularly proud of what they regard as their unique stranglehold on style and fashion. It is what they would say, à la mode. It is a quirky design, there's no denying it, but it's immensely practical. 5 seats, curry hooks, picnic tables, loads of luggage space, and even its very own shopping trolley. No, really. The Citroen Picasso isn't just functional and practical, it's sleek, it's chic, and my friends, it's aerodynamique. This car continues the noble Citroen tradition of designing cars that owe nothing in concept to cars built anywhere outside of France. Make no mistake, this is a French car.
Now I reckon I've got quite a cool job. I get to sit in some fantastic cars, I get to drive some awesome cars, and I get to talk about them, something I like doing. But today, I'm pretty much lost for words. Well, apart from one, wow. This car is the first road version of the Saleen S7, a collaboration of American muscle and British technology to produce this awesome road racing car. The S7 was conceived to combine the performance of a track racer with driving pleasure of a road car, and it's set to be one of the fastest and best handling cars in the world. And with a price tag of around £300,000, only 400 cars will be built. So let's meet the creator of this fantastic machine, Steve Saleen. Steve, great to meet you in an awesome car. How do you start to design and create something like this?
Well, I think that what you see here really is a culmination of 17 years worth of work and building cars. And one of the reasons why we created it was to kind of show really to the world that what we do is really true manufacturing.
Do you look at, say, the Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche and get ideas, or have you just sort of put the blinkers on and think, no, this is my car and no, that's how I'm going to go about it?
Well, we started with a clean sheet of paper. There was really no design criteria. One of the things that we established was the performance characteristics had to be #1, and that meant that we had to have a good chassis, a very performance-oriented chassis. We had to have good aero. We had to have a good drivetrain that produced a fair amount of horsepower and torque, and yet still gave you the drivability and still would function as an everyday street car. To say that I wasn't inspired by all the other exotic cars that have been out since day one would be untruthful. We have always taken the performance envelope that we've built for the street and have adapted it to the track. I think you'll find with this car there really is no different. And we've always raced in production-based racing where we feel really truly shows the performance capabilities of the cars, and the best way to do that is really by winning races on the track.
Now Steve, this car obviously performs well visually, but in terms of power plant, drivetrain, that sort of thing, what's involved there?
Well, I think actually that's really where the vehicle shines, is that, again, performance was the key factor in the development of this car. I think you'll find that the chassis is very contemporary. It has a longer wheelbase. It has a very wide stance. It'll give really superior cornering. We should be able to have very good G-loads, and very tractability of the car should be excellent. The power plant is strictly all-American. It's, as we say, V8 under glass.
It's got to be.
And it's 550 horsepower and over 500 foot-pounds of torque most of the time. So it should really give quite a ride. We're expecting the performance to be, you know, under 4 seconds from 0 to 60 and well over 200 miles an hour, and yet at the same time be able to stop really on, as we say in the U.S., on a dime. And
on a sixpence.
yes,
over
on
here.
a sixpence over here. And and be able to really corner, really very similar to like what you would expect a full-blown race car.
Now another feature, again, chatting to one of your engineers, they were saying similar to the Formula One car, over a certain speed it would sort of be able to ride upside down, stick to the ceiling, as it were.
Yeah, again, a lot of time was spent in the aerodynamics. There was a wind tunnel model that we spent quite a bit. In fact, we used, not too far from here, we used the University of Glasgow up in Scotland as our rolling plane wind tunnel for a lot of the development. And because of that, the aero is very efficient, and the aero over the car, underneath the car, and actually through it, the way it's being ducted through the radiators, through the engine compartment, actually all acts as a very much of a ground effects on it. To literally at about 160 miles, you could drive it and it would stick to the road upside down.
So what sort of person is going to buy this car over, you know, one of the other sort of supercar manufacturers?
Well, I think first it's very limited edition. It is certainly in potential into the collector market. If you look at side-by-side comparison with some of the vehicles that you mentioned, the price, even though it's expensive, isn't as expensive as some of those.
So next time you're in the pub with your mates chatting about which is the best supercar, be it Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, you might want to mention the Saleen, because from what we've seen today, it's going to be an awesome contender.
At 17, I became the proud owner of a 1970 VW Beetle. Metallic blue, shiny chrome bumpers, it was the car of my dreams. But it wasn't too long before that sweet little car's imperfections started to grate on that dream, and I began to long for a car that started on winter mornings, a car whose petrol gauge actually worked, a car whose gear stick didn't come off in my hand whilst changing into third. A year later, I traded in the Beetle for a more modern Citroen AX, which, what it lacked in character, it certainly made up for in reliability. Now, unlike myself, many classic and vintage car enthusiasts keep these vehicles as a hobby, a collector's item to show off at events like this Golden Age Vehicles show in Cheshire. More often than not, it's an additional car to their more practical day-to-day runaround. But if asked to make the choice between old and new, where would their loyalties lie? If given the choice, what would you choose, classic or modern car?
Classic.
And why is that? What's the biggest joy of owning a classic?
Well, they're a future classic, the old ones now. There's not many of them about. They're economical, they're fun, they attract a lot of attention. I just love it to bits.
Is it more the aesthetics, or would you say it was the actual driving of the car? A combination of both?
A combination, really. I mean, I spend a lot of time just cleaning it, and that's I get a lot of pleasure out of. But I do enjoy taking it out on the open roads anytime, you know.
Now, when I was told there was going to be some Cadillacs at this show, I was expecting the stereotypical 1950s big fins, but instead I found Derek with his 1909 classic Cadillac. Look at this car, it's absolutely amazing. Thank you. Now, what was it that attracted you to this car the most?
The brass.
The brass.
Yeah.
And you polish it regularly?
Yes, I do, every week. Yes.
Now, this car obviously isn't your day-to-day runaround. I
No,
can't imagine you going down the shops in this on a Saturday afternoon.
On occasion.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
So you have another car besides this?
I do.
Now, if asked to make the choice between this car and your more modern runaround, which would you choose?
This car.
You'd choose this car?
All the time.
Even though you might not be able to take it out in the winter?
Yep.
You might have to get the bus or the train or whatever?
Yes, still prefer this one.
So you definitely make a lot of sacrifices in order to keep this car?
Every sacrifice.
And I bet you love taking it out on a Sunday, don't you?
Oh, I do, yes, I really do. It's look forward to it all the week.
So how fast does this car go, Derek?
Probably 30 miles an hour on a good day.
A cruiser?
A cruiser, yeah.
Definitely,
yeah.
So you can be seen around the place.
That's it, why not?
Yeah. Now, it's all very well buying a classic car that's in mint condition, but what about the people that are willing to sacrifice time and money to restore them from the shell that they once were? And I'm with Raymond, and I believe this is a Singer Roadster?
Yes.
That's right. And what year was it made?
It's 1950.
Okay,
Yeah.
And what sort of condition was this car in when you came about it?
Well, it'd been in store in a garage for about 12 years.
Yeah.
And there was no running boards on it, no bumpers on it. It was just a complete wreck.
Was it easy to come across all the various
Well,
parts?
it was very hard at times finding parts, and
Was it?
Yes, and a lot of parts we had to make.
Did you?
In the garage, yeah.
Example of?
Well, the running boards, the
Yeah.
bumpers, different things like that. Some parts of the engine we had to put Austin parts in the Singer
Right.
to restore it. And it's got the drop-down windscreen.
Ooh, why would you
For
need
if
a
you want
drop-down?
to get the wind in your hair.
There,
Yeah.
So,
All this dash was made out of the wood. And,
yeah, I love this.
yeah,
It's a
the
really
wooden
nice
dash,
feature.
yeah.
What do you think it is with classic car enthusiasts that attracts them to events like this most of all? Do you think it's the social aspect or the swapping ownership tips and where to get parts?
I've got to say, I think part of the fun of owning a classic car is showing it.
Yep.
I mean, say, that really is it. It's pride of ownership. People want to come out, they want to show their vehicles. They like to impress each other as well. But for sure, they simply want to let people see what they own. It's pride of ownership. And there's an awful lot of chat goes on between them on the different marks and everything, and it's a social event.
Well, having spoken to these enthusiasts today, I really think that classic or vintage car ownership transcends practicality. It's almost like the long-standing marriage. You might get tempted by faster, racier models from time to time, and you know they'll always be a goer. But for just how long will they keep your interest? And as for my Beetle, I'm starting to wish that I never sold it after all.
Well, I'm afraid that's it for Motor Mania this week, and just before we put the finishing touches to next week's show, I'll tell you what's in it. Ian Royle, he's been having a look at that gorgeous classic British car, the Morris Minor. Louise Brady, well, she's been trying a hand at time trials, and Steve Vokins will be finding out what makes a British sports car British. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.